Mr. Udemezwe, let's now look at our spending power. With the way we've painted this picture, how has our spending power been in the last 15 years? Has it been encouraging, or can it do better?
Spending power at the micro level, each and every one of us, that's the individuals, has been very, for me, abysmal. I would like to mention this, because of, in line with what I've said earlier. Though you see a lot of growth, our income per capita, or per capita real income, maybe at about $2,800 now, you find that the level of inequality in the economy is also very huge. Even though it's reported to be at 48%, as Gini index is at 48% rightly. But I believe that it's worse than that, because the economy of the nation is in few hands. So people don't have spending power. We have tried to, after the consolidation of the banking financial sector, we began to see some kind of growth in the middle class. Okay, but following the global financial crisis, that growth appears to have been nullified. People don't have money to spend. Even though we hear the CBN crying about excess liquidity all the time, we don't see that liquidity in my hand. We don't see that liquidity in your hand. We don't have more money in our pockets pursuing few goods in the market. So that whole liquidity is just a farce. It's something we cannot understand.
Really? But then you see, there was a recent report from McKinsey Global Institute. It actually came out this week on Tuesday. Okay. And it actually said Nigeria's consumer market annually since 2010 is put at about $400 billion, and it could grow to $1 trillion in 2030. So that actually now kind of negates what it is that you're trying to say about how the market is. The
consumer market might be said to be growing, but based on what? Who are the people buying these goods? The purchasing power of Naira, is even getting weaker and weaker. So, but the point I'm making is that the domestic demand in Nigeria today is not as strong as it should be. People are not demanding for goods, and that's why, for me, I believe that Nigerian inflation is demand pull inflation. And because people are not able to demand for goods effectively, that's why our inflation figure, for me, has been going down. And we'll be celebrating that. We have a single-digit inflation right now, but how much are people able to demand for goods? How much command over commodity do you have and do I have compared to the previous? Is it increasing? Is it improving by the day? When people are losing their jobs in the financial sector, in other sectors, in the oil and gas sector, employment is not as much as it should be. Even though they give us 89 to 90% of our foreign earnings, but they don't employ. Much of the employment that we need will come from the manufacturing sector and agricultural sector, but how much are they making? The person that works in a farm, how much is he paid? The person that works in Nigerian factories, how much are they paid? You see people earning 12,000 naira a month. Even graduates earn 20,000. So where is that power to demand for goods effectively? Where is that purchasing power? Where is the command over goods and services? So you can't find it. So I believe that we still have a lot to do in coordinating our fiscal and monetary policy, so we can find the right repair for the right problems. Okay, so you've talked about our spending power on the micro level. Let's talk about our spending power
at the
macro level. Our spending power has been increasing because our oil receipts, have also been increasing. If you look at, our annual receipts in oil, of course, oil price has been going up and down. And of course, we all know that Nigeria is a price taker when it comes to oil. But we've been fortunate over the years that even though we've had vagaries in the oil prices, somehow it's been favoring us. About 3 or 4 years ago, the oil price was at about $65. Now it's above $100. And with the Russian, issue, the issues around Ukraine and Russian crisis, it's perceived that the prices may remain high until those issues are resolved, because Russia is a major supplier of oil. As long as they remain sanctioned, Nigeria will begin to benefit from that process. But how much of what we have received over the years have we used to develop our economy? That's the problem. We have huge oil receipts year in, year out. But how well have we used that in running a budget that will drive development? And that takes me to the issue of budgeting. We have what we call the medium-term expenditure framework promoted by our very knowledgeable and well-respected Minister of Finance, Coordinating Minister of Economy, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. But, despite the fact that we have this framework on paper, I don't see it being consciously driven to drive development. That's a master plan that if we even implement it even 50% of it, we will see a quantum leap in our economic development indices. You now find a case where we've said that over the years, we will progressively reduce the percentage of our current expenditure, compared to capital expenditure. The target is to make sure we drive recurrent expenditure down to 60%, at the most, and see how we can progressively push, capital expenditure to almost 40%, which is what is meant to lead to better schools, better hospitals, better road infrastructure, better aviation, facilities and all of that. But you find that that's only on paper. I was surprised to compare the 2013 and 2014 budget, and I found, even though that the figure went down because apparently our, revenue is not that, is not, going to get better this year. But even though the absolute figure of the budget went down, I saw an increase, in the percentage of recurrent expenditure, between 2013 and 2014, from around 77% to about 73 to 78%. While capital expenditure moved down from about 27 to 23%. Why would that be? Is that in line with the plan we are creating for ourselves?
Okay, so now back and talking about development, how the economy can develop. But before we actually look at how the economy can develop going forward, when we began democratic rule in Nigeria, that was about the time that Nigeria adopted the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, and that's expiring next year. So how much of those goals have we actually achieved? Because, of course, it's still part of development.
That was a special policy, a very much celebrated international achievement, where over 189 countries came together to declare that the whole world would join hands together to eradicate extreme poverty. That was in year 2000. It was a 15-year target, a long-term development plan. There are about 8 goals, okay? Eradicating extreme poverty and hunger, achieving universal basic education, okay? And promoting gender equality and women empowerment, reducing all of that, about 8 of them. Okay, but soon after that, for me, my own analysis, I think a year after that policy was rolled out, the 9/11 attack on the U.S. happened. For me, I felt that attack diverted the attention of most of the developed world in supporting the developing economies to pursue those goals. For Nigeria, when we're looking at how far we've done on that policy, we're looking at what would we have achieved on those issues without the MDGs, without so much noise that was made on the MDGs. So if you look at it, you find that whatever we've achieved on those things are things we ordinarily would have achieved in course of our lives as a nation.
Even without looking at ourselves.
So the MDG was meant to focus attention on those goals. I've mentioned about 4 of them: reducing child and infant mortality, improving maternal health, that's MDG 5, and then 6, combating HIV/AIDS, and other diseases, malaria and other diseases, and then ensuring environmental sustainability, and then finally MDG 8, developing partnership for global, for economic development. Looking at the 8 of them, I don't see so much achievement. If you're looking at extreme poverty, you cannot say we have done any better. If, as of today, it is still reported, and it is true, that more than 60%, in fact, that's being merciful. In some reports, you see about 70% of Nigerians living in extreme poverty. That is living under $2 per day. And you look at that, in the past 15 years, you ask yourself, why should that be for a nation that's been earning a lot of, dollar money? So for me, we haven't done well on the MD. Looking at child mortality, young people are still dying before the age of 5. Malaria is still killing our children. HIV is still prevalent, even though it's getting better. But the point I'm making is that so much focus we give to MDG was so much about noise without a lot of action. But we still have the opportunity to begin to get the drive right from now. In the next 1 year, the MDG period will elapse. But we must not keep our eyes away from the ball. We must remember that those are problems that we own, and we must solve them, MDG or no MDG. And I'm also sure maybe the global community will also come up with either extending that goal or call it something else. But this time around, it shouldn't just be noise making. We must make conscious policies and then bring about real leadership that will drive those policies. Because that's what I was going to talk about in coming about development.
So now let's get